I briefly want to touch on today two things really. The thing I want to focus on most of all is the state of the market as we at Alert Me perceive it. Some general observations, some observations based on our customers and how they act. And also I'd like to share some recent market research that we've had done, which I think has some quite interesting numbers in it. And then I'll touch on a little bit. I'm aware this is the third such conference. It's the third time I've spoken at it, and so I just wanted to take a few minutes just to update you on sort of where we're at and our competitors are at in the market, because it's evolving very fast in terms of what's possible. So the state of the market, we don't need to rehash this, but essentially, you know, I always think of it as three main groups, sort of governments, utilities and networks, and consumers as the three main players in all the changes that are to come. And just to touch on some of the many challenges, we had the stuff that Chris Huhne announced a month or so ago, committing the UK to 50% CO2 reductions by 2025, which is truly an eye-watering number. And yet DEC announced in something in the last few months that they thought that smart meters would on their own only drive about 2% savings in the home, so quite a big mismatch between those two numbers. Utilities obviously having to sell less energy and yet somehow maintain their profits. Network operators facing variable supply thanks to wind. And poor old consumer sort of caught in this world of increasing energy prices and more pain. But I think the point I want to make really is that those problems are not all equal, and to some extent the consumer's problems can actually become a big part of the solution if we think about it right. Because 30% of all the national energy consumption happens in the home. It's a huge number, and in fact about 17% I think in our vehicles. So, you know, half of all the consumption is happening directly under our control, supposedly, if only we knew it. And I think consumers are increasingly motivated to do something about this, mainly by price rises. But I think the problem is that consumers aren't empowered to do anything about it. And if you have motivation without empowerment, then people just get very frustrated, and I think that's really where we're all at the moment. But I think if you can empower people, then you can really cause action and transformation very quickly. So how do we empower consumers? Well, I think there are essentially three basic ways to do that. The first one is around visibility and information. So it's actually taking this £1,200 a year that consumers pay for their energy and actually showing consumers where it's going in their home. Energy is invisible, so we need to make it visible. We need to make the consumption visible, starting off with simple in-home displays and then moving towards itemised billing. You know, wouldn't it be nice if we could understand how much of that bill was being spent on washing our clothes or tumble drying or boiling a kettle or whatever? It would allow us to act differently and change our behaviour, and might also spur us into buying more energy efficient appliances, for example. The second step really is around control. Only 5% of people know how to use their boiler, their heating controls, which is truly a scary number really, and it explains why a lot of houses are neither efficient nor comfortable. And we can do a lot to make those controls much easier to use, and to make them accessible not just when you're standing in front of them, but actually sort of wherever you are and whatever you're doing, make them convenient. But if those two things are all that we do, then we've given people the knowledge and we've given them the control. But in the face of increasingly complicated energy environment with time of use pricing and other things happening, then what will happen is that the consumer's world will just get more and more complicated, and they'll have to spend more and more of their time managing things. And you know, either the world's probably divided into two types of people: the people who are able to do that because they understand what's going on, but they're too time poor to do it, and the people who are not able to do it because they can't really sort of grasp what's necessary. And in neither case, you know, is this a complete solution. So what's necessary to finish the picture off really is automation, to reduce that management burden and ideally get to systems that just do the right thing, save you money and keep you comfortable without you having to think about it. And I wish we could get there in one go. I don't think we will. I think it'll take several steps. But you know, I think hopefully in a sort of 10-year time frame we can get to that point. So what evidence do we have from the market that interventions for the consumer can actually lead to reduced consumption? Well, in academia, universities, and also in business, there have been a number of trials that have gone on of things like in-home displays, intelligent heating controls, putting messaging on bills to see if it influences behaviour. But a lot of these studies have been done really at a very small scale. So they're interesting in terms of understanding what's going on, qualitative data, but they're not very good for quantitative. So if we take, for example, an intelligent heating system that's supposed to drive 15% reduction in household energy consumption, doing a test of such a system on 30 homes gives you error bars that are much, much larger than the effect you're trying to measure. So statistically, you can't prove anything. Even though this 15% number is equivalent to about £4.5 billion a year saved to UK consumers. So really, these small trials are not good enough for getting the proof, the statistical proof that we need. So we need much more, bigger studies of the scale of 1,000 homes. And we need to also have them with control homes alongside to take care of the macro variations due to weather, economy and so on, which mean that you can't just compare consumption this year with what it was last year. Even if we knew what it was last year, because of course in most homes we have no idea. It's good to know that various bodies are now planning some scale trials, but really the biggest scale experiment that we have, I suppose, to date in terms of providing more visibility and control for consumers is the CERT funding of in-home displays, a lot of which have been pushed out into the market, given away free. And there is some evidence that they do drive some behaviour change, although equally it's hard to know how many of them remain in people's homes rather than in the kitchen drawer. So zooming out a little bit, if we want to play in the consumer market, we really need to understand sort of how consumers think and what they care about and so on. And there's no doubt, I think, that online generally is a huge enabler. Many people spend more and more of their time online, whether it's sort of Facebook or online gaming or whatever. We also have the appearance of more and more sort of smart devices in the home. And I think also there's a trend, as we get more and more of these devices in our homes, we get more and more connected, there's also a bit of a trend back to simplicity. And perhaps that was the genius of iPhone and iTunes, is they're so simple. So I think generally if the consumer's going in a particular direction, we should really try and sort of go with them to drive change. And just to make a slightly simplistic analogy, but if we look at how we consume, how we've changed how we consume media over the last 20 years, we used to sit back and choose one of our four channels and have stuff broadcast at us. And really that's changed totally now, hasn't it? We now actively participate in what we watch, lots of channels to choose from, PVRs to time shift and so on. We can do so wherever we want. We can watch TV or films on our iPhones or our tablets or whatever. And we can even generate content ourselves by posting things onto YouTube and so on. And I think there's some pretty obvious analogies there with what can happen in energy. We'll be playing a much more actively participating role in how we consume energy. We'll be able to understand and manage our energy sort of wherever we are, and we can, in some cases, even generate it through microgeneration. So another way that we can get some evidence about how the market thinks is from our own customers. So Alertme sells to big channel partners. We did a very big deal, for example, last year with British Gas. But we also have our own direct-to-consumer business in the UK, which is very valuable to us in understanding the market. And every Alertme customer is online. Every Alertme system is online. That's an intrinsic part of how Alertme works. And that means that just as a web company, or Google or something, can track how people interact, what they click on the web, so we can do the same in people's homes. We can understand how people interact with our technology, what they use, what they don't use. We can also, obviously, we have customer service, and if people have problems or they have things they want to tell us that they really like, we do capture a lot of that information about how consumers interact with what we're doing. And we also proactively go and engage with consumers in surveys and focus groups to really drive a deeper understanding of consumers. But I have to confess that even then, a lot of that is qualitative, not quantitative. So to help sort of boost our quantitative accuracy, we've recently commissioned a large piece of research by a market research agency called Critical Research. And this is quite sort of in-depth studies with quite a large number of people. So this is more than 1,200 UK homeowners, and chosen to be carefully representative of UK demographics. And at that scale, that means that to have a good confidence in the results, those results will be accurate within sort of 2% or so. So we first tested, and I'm just going to pick out a few highlights of the things we did. We've much more information than this if anyone's interested. First of all, we gave them some phrases like home energy management and home monitoring, and we asked, do you understand these terms? And about half of people did. We then actually went and defined what they are. So home energy management, it's visibility, control, and automation of electricity and gas and heating, online, real-time two-way communication, save money, that sort of thing. And also home monitoring, which has nothing to do with energy, but is another offering we have on the same platform. And once we'd done that, and the connected home, by the way, is a phrase. Connected home and smart home are two phrases that are being used now increasingly for what we do. And once we'd made those, once we'd described things in that way, we found that pretty much everyone sort of gets what this is about. We then just put some very high-level attributes that you might get from a connected home offering. We asked people to say which they preferred, which were most important to them. And sort of by a clear mile, saving money came at the top, followed by control, followed by general sort of peace of mind. And in other parts of the survey, as we made it more granular and asked much more detailed questions, these three themes came out again and again and again. So in another part of the survey, we broke it down into some more detailed benefits. But again, you can see that saving money and being in control are very big themes. And I suspect one of those little slices up the top that doesn't even have a name was probably to do with saving the planet and carbon footprint and so on. So we then articulated what home energy management might be with literally just this information, some pictures and a few words. And we said, sort of, you know, does this sound interesting to you? And remember, this is typical average UK consumers. This is not just early adopters or whatever. And, you know, pretty interesting profile there, showing really quite high levels of interest and engagement. We then, interestingly, asked people, okay, so if you've got some kind of system that can help you see and manage your home energy, how would you like that delivered? Would you like it in a product, something that sits on your kitchen counter and can interact with you there? Or would you like it delivered as an online service so that you can see it from your smartphone or the web or wherever you want, really? Maybe it's not quite as convenient as an at-a-glance display on your kitchen surface, but you can see it anytime you like, and you can actually drill in and get much more detailed information. And I was quite surprised by the answers, which were exactly 40-40 split between the displays and the demographics for that. The people who want displays are obviously tend to be the more elderly population. And then, you know, another 40% want online. And we can see, you know, we can guess which way those are going to go in the future. Obviously, there are some people who don't want it at all under any circumstances, but luckily, not too many. We also asked people, if you're going to interact with stuff online, how would you like to do it? Would you do it using a smartphone or the web or both? And I was slightly disappointed, actually, that the smartphone is not equal with the web, but I think that probably reflects the fact that you know, significantly less than half the population has a smartphone yet. But again, that's changing rapidly. So just to give a quick update on what AlertMe is doing today and what we've really delivered over the last year. And this is I'm using AlertMe as an example, but you know, we have plenty of competitors in the market, in the UK market and European and US markets. And I would say this is quite representative of what's going on across all of those. If you've been at previous conferences, you've probably seen me sort of throw up a picture something like this. There's a whole load of stuff in your home and your life on the left there that AlertMe can help you manage. And then we put all this information and control online, and we can interact with other things and deliver applications and so on. I think a new word that we won't have seen before there is OSGI. So one of the challenges for us is how do we make sure this stuff is really open so that there is a big ecosystem of devices that we can use and that we can talk to anything, whatever physical standards it uses. And so we've decided that OSGI is the solution to this. Open Systems Gateway Initiative, I think is what it stands for. It's actually been something that's been around for a long time. People have been using it selectively for certain tasks. But there's now quite a lot of evidence, we think, that people are going to rapidly adopt OSGI and put it in their broadband routers, in their set-top boxes, and so on. And so by using OSGI, we can actually get access to a much wider ecosystem of devices, but we can also potentially offer our service on other people's OSGI hubs. I won't labour this slide very much, except to say that this shows how, if, for example, you have an AlertMe system in your home doing something, maybe it's a simple home energy monitoring setup, and you introduce a new device into your home, which could be an online heating controller or a heat pump or whatever else, or electric vehicle, Your Alert Me gateway may not know what that thing is at all. I mean, it sort of sees this thing appear on the network and it doesn't know anything about it. But it can basically go off to the device store and say, well, I've got something that claims to be this, what is it and how should I deal with it? And now it magically can know how to deal with it. A bit like when you plug a device into your laptop and it goes and finds the drivers so it can make it work. And from a consumer point of view, it can go off and find the applications that make that work. And Alert Me customers will already be familiar with this because, for example, if you add a heating controller to an existing Alert Me system, then suddenly you've got a heating control app in your smartphone dashboard and your web dashboard and so on. So, you know, the important thing is that all of this is hidden under the hood from a consumer point of view. What it corresponds to really is something that just works from a consumer perspective. So just to very quickly sort of summarise the services and the propositions, Smart Energy, which is home energy management, really is allowing you real-time view of your energy and much more information about where it's going and also control over it so you can turn individual appliances on and off. And we're also starting to do a lot more stuff around comparative stuff, so showing people how they're doing compared to other homes in their neighbourhood or other people with similar demographics to them, because that appears to be very effective in engaging people. Heating is a specific sort of aspect of home energy management, but because heating consumes more than half the energy in your home, it's worth doing. And of course, this is not just heating, it's climate control in other countries as well. You know, I think I've already probably covered pretty much everything this does. But I think there are some interesting steps with smart heating, because step one is around giving people control, so making it easy to use. But once you've got that control, you can then start to add intelligence based on the other things that Alert Me knows about. It knows if the home's occupied, it knows what the weather forecast is going to be, lots of other stuff. You know, what could we do with all this information in order to optimize your heating? And that really is the next step for us in the future. And then smart monitoring has nothing to do with this conference today, but again, it's a home security offering on the same platform. The point is, though, that if we're selling Alert Me directly, or a channel partner like British Gas is selling it, this helps make the system much more valuable and engaging to consumers. It gives them another reason to buy it, and it gives another application against which to amortize the cost of the hub. So it's really just around making the whole proposition more sticky and attractive to consumers. We have many routes to the mass market. The British Gas deal I mentioned as an example of a large channel partner. And we have the B2C direct base, which helps us to sort of stay on the leading edge in terms of understanding what consumers want by having a very close relationship with them. What do I think is going to be some themes for the next couple of years in the smart home? Well, I think a big one will be standards. There are many players in the market today, but frankly, they don't talk to each other as much as they should, technically or in other ways, and I think that's going to change. It has to change. And doing so will unleash a lot of innovation, make consumers' lives much better by giving them choice and interoperability. And it will mean that a true ecosystem emerges, so you have some freedom to choose devices from manufacturer B and services from vendor A and so on. And then finally, I've mentioned a few buzzwords like the smart home and the connected home. I want to mention just one more, which is the Internet of Things, which I think we'll be hearing more and more of. If you look at the infrastructure of Alert Me and how it works, you've got things in the home that then talk through a gateway to the cloud and then interact with consumers. And the interesting thing about this is that the infrastructure does the heavy lifting for some really very simple, dumb devices. So if, for example, you have a button in your home, it's really as dumb as anything can be, really. It has no power, no computational power. You know, it's just a button. But thanks to this infrastructure, it becomes an internet button. And then its potential is limitless. Pressing that button can make almost anything happen anywhere in the world, which is really quite an exciting prospect. And if we look at how the Internet of Things is going to evolve, right now people are doing lots of machine-to-machine applications. So you can now get smart meters that are online, electric vehicles that are online. The new Nissan Leaf comes with an iPhone app. Solar panels that show you consumption online, washing machines and other white goods are starting to appear that can be put online, heating controls and so on. But these are generally sold as one-to-one applications, so the idea is that you as a consumer get an app that can talk to that one appliance. And that's fine, but it's not the Internet of Things. What the Internet of Things is where these devices start to be able to talk to each other to solve the problems by themselves without having to bother you. And hopefully that makes your life easier. And I think then that's not just about sort of machine to human, it's about machine to machine and one-to-many interfaces. So that was my final point, and I think with 1 second to spare, that's me done. Thank you.